son are currently on our way to Dearborn for the Arba'in March. This is our first year going. And during this 2-hour drive from Kalamazoo to Dearborn, I have kind of came to a realization about one of the biggest contention points between Sunni and Shia, especially during this time of year, during the time of mourning for the tragedy of Karbala. So one of the main points of contentions between Shia and Sunni is the way that Shias mourn the Battle of Karbala, the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and his 72 companions, and the encapturement, torture, and mistreatment of the women and children after the battle. And I was sitting here just kind of reflecting on why this is such a point of contention, because in my head, it didn't make any sense to me. Because the way that I view it is the Battle of Karbala and the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and just the love and mourning for this event is not a secular thing. This is a Muslim thing, because we should all have love for Imam Hussein, one of the beloved grandsons of the Prophet, one of the grandsons, one of the children who were considered the son of the Prophet. The Prophet spoke multiple times about how Hassan and Hussein were his own sons, his grandsons were his own sons, they were from him. So it would make sense that anyone who loves the Prophet would love Imam Hussein and feel sad and understand the tragedy that was Karbala. And also as Muslims as a whole, we would understand that this was one of the greatest lessons played out in front of us to remind us how important it is to stand up to oppression, even in the face of death, knowing that we are going to be martyred, knowing that we are going to be returned to God, that it is still more important to die on the battlefield for what is right than it is to stand by and let oppression, let evil win. And yet, year after year, Shias are ran through the mud for commemorating this time at all. And we can have a discussion at some other time about different ways of mourning and what's considered extreme and what's considered acceptable and blah, blah, blah. But right now, I just want to talk about remembering the historical event of the tragedy of Karbala. And the reason that Shias are so intense about this, and some will say that Shias are more intense about this than anything else on the yearly calendar. And I've come to the realization that the reason that Shias are so intense and so purposeful and so loud about muharram, about the tragedy of Karbala, is because we are making sure that it's not forgotten. Because there are many, many, many other Muslims throughout the world and throughout history who have tried to erase these events. There are people who have tried to erase what this historical event that has happened, this lesson that was taught to us, because it didn't suit the narrative of Islam that they wanted based on political power plays. Because at the time of the tragedy of Karbala, there was no Sunni or Shia. There, of course, were different people who followed, different leaders. There were people who followed the Sunni line of caliphate, and then there were us, the predecessors to the Shia, who followed the caliphate of the bloodline of the Prophet. So throughout time, there has been a purposeful, politically charged movement to try to erase or mitigate the importance of the tragedy of Karbala. I have met a great deal of Sunnis who don't even have a full understanding of what the tragedy of Karbala is. They don't know what it is. And I would be hard-picked to find an average Sunni who knows even what the Arba'in March is and why we do it. Shias are forced to, year after year, about these events the way that we practice them, because this is a very important part of Islamic history as a whole that is actively being they're actively trying to erase. Not because it's questionable religiously. We're talking about a very important lesson that Islam teaches us over and over again about standing in the face of oppression. Something that we are taught to do as Muslims. One of the first lessons that we teach our children, one of the lessons I teach my son, who is not even 4 yet, every single day. It's specifically a politically charged movement to erase this because of the continuing fissure between Sunnis and Shia politically. And I genuinely believe that if Imam Hussein was a part of any other part of the family tree of the Prophet, if he was not the son of Imam Ali, that the Sunni education in response to this would be completely different. I genuinely believe that Sunnis would hold these events in higher regard if Imam Hussein was not the son of Imam Ali. And they'll claim up and down, oh, we love Imam Ali, we love Hassan and Hussein, we love them, they're important to us. And yet you year after year try to minimize and forget about the tragedy of Karbala. You're not even teaching widespread these events and what happened and why they happened. And I know this because I see it. You can't say, oh, well, we're taught about Karbala and we just don't do what you guys do and blah, blah, blah. No, you don't know about it because you don't know any of the facts of what happened. I'll sit here and I'll read historical books on live streams or when I'm talking to, people that I'm in debates with. These are historical events that are agreed upon by Sunni and Shia scholars as to what happened leading up to the Battle of Karbala, what happened during the events of the Battle of Karbala, what happened in the events afterwards from a political standpoint within the Islamic, power. And y'all will not know what I'm talking about, and you'll get your feelings hurt, and you'll start just making random accusations at me for being Shia and saying all of your rage-baity phrases that you all are programmed to say because you have nothing to argue with the facts of these events. As Shia, time and time again, we are criticized and ostracized for just trying to hold on to the historical events of what happened without misinterpretation, without, this person changing things, that person changing things, this person's opinion, that person's opinion. We are just trying to retell and remember the historical events that happened. And we are the ones who get criticized for it when y'all will sit here with your hadiths that you know are not authenticated, knowing that a bunch of your hadiths were specifically written because this person and that person were upset about how many hadiths there were about Imam Ali. And you'll sit here and scream till you're blue in the face about who you think is better and what you think is better and who you think is stronger or braver or closer to the Prophet, and you know nothing about the history of your own religion. So next year, Shias will continue to teach and portray these events, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that, until the Ummah stops ignoring them. You want us to stop going to these crazy extremes to present these events, then stop ignoring them. Stop pretending that they didn't happen. Feel something about this battle that happened, not because you believe that Imam Hussein is this special person the way that we do, but because he was the grandson of the Prophet and he was a good man who stood against oppression, regardless of whose grandson he was. Feel something. Gee.